Hi, everyone. Welcome to Studio Jake. Of course, I'm your host, Jacob Airy. Be sure to like this video because I've got a very special guest. But before you do that, also ring that, subscribe to my channel, ring that bell so you get the notifications because YouTube is changing their subscription algorithm. So even though you subscribe to Studio Jake, you may not see me because of how they're doing their subscription, but be sure to ring that little bell so you get that notification. So today I've got a very special guest. I'm excited to have her on. She just wrote a new book that I'm going to let her tell you about, but I reviewed it on my blog, jakeberry.blog, so go and check that out. You know her as C.S. Johnson. She does all kinds of young adult fiction. She does fantasy fiction. She does urban fiction. She does that combination genre where it's fantasy mixed in with reality. So I'm very excited to have her on. C.S. Johnson, welcome to Studio Jake.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited to be here.
So you just released your new book, Kingdom of Ash and Soot. Yes. And now, oh yeah, there's the cover right there. Definitely, and I highly recommend it. I rarely do this when I review a book, but I actually loved it so much. I put a link to her Amazon, where you can buy it on Amazon. That's how much I liked it. So definitely, if you're not able to find her website, go to my blog and click on the article. It should be. It's not the headlining article. It was. It changed yesterday, but it should be in the recent posts. Definitely click on that and go to Amazon and grab your copy. So I want to ask you, whenever, because this is your 20th book, correct?
Yes.
Your 20th book. So I'm a little curious. Whenever you were writing it, you described it as Cinderella mixed with Mission Impossible. So could you tell the viewers what exactly that means?
Well, the book is set in 1870 in Prague, so during the Victorian era. And it centers on this servant girl named Eleonora. She's 19 years old, and she's been working with her brother in her stepmother's household for the last 10 years since her father died. And when her maternal grandmother appears, she's they're both surprised because they didn't really know anything about each other. But our grandmother, Lady Penelope, is a spy master for Queen Victoria, and she's in Prague to solve a murder. And there are a bunch of murders, actually, that are getting blamed on other people. And it kind of hints at this political coup. And as Eleonora decides to join her and work with the Order of the Crystal Daggers, secret spy, and they find out there's a secret heir to the throne, and there's this big conspiracy to reestablish Bohemia as a separate kingdom from the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
And I'm trying to ask you questions that won't lead to spoilers, but I want to. There's so many good stuff. I love your character descriptions. They're so rich. And Eleonora, the main character, one thing I really appreciate about your writing is you write heroic female characters, and this is going to sound a little weird, but there's not men. There's still, but like a lot. There's this temptation in our modern times where the female characters, they tend to take on more masculine traits, and I really appreciate your writing because it kind of gets away from that political correctness, and you have a strong central female protagonist who maintains her femininity, but at the same time she kicks butt, and that's really cool. And I'm curious, is there a particular now, obviously, Eleanor sounds an awful lot like Cinderella, but I'm curious, what are some of the influence you had for developing her character?
Well, this is actually my father's fault. My father and I have a very tenuous relationship, and we don't agree on anything. But when I was a kid, the re-release for Cinderella came out, and he actually went to like 3 or 4 different stores. It's like legendary in my family. It's one of the stories we tell ourselves at Christmas. So I always liked Cinderella for that reason. It reminded me that my father was my original hero. And I further developed Eleanor's character because of the Bohemian heritage that my family shares. my dad's family comes from Western Europe and my mom's is from Eastern Europe. So this is kind of like a really weird mix of my family history. And it's kind of a homage to that.
That's really cool. And so it's called, the series is called The Order of the Crystal Daggers, and it says book 1. So
Yes.
does that mean it's going to be a series?
It's a trilogy. Yes. Book 2 is probably going to be out in the next 6 or 7 months ish. So
That's really cool.
Yep. And the series centers around during this time in Bohemia's history. They're part of the Austria-Hungarian Empire, and at one point in 1871, which leads up to kind of the next couple books, the Emperor Franz Joseph I, he actually was considering making Bohemia the third like major crown in the empire. So you'd have Bohemia, you'd have Austria, and then you'd have Hungary. But so he arranged for a tripartite council, and the council ended up being canceled, and I couldn't actually find out why. So I was like, I gotta write something about this.
There you go.
So
conspiracy theorists go.
Yeah, secret heirs, assassination attempts, true love. It's kind of an interesting thing though, because one of the things that did draw me into the story deeper, what were the politics at the time. You had two major political divide, and there's a bunch of racial tension in the city, and there's an economic coal boom, and the leader, he had his mental facilities questioned, and I was like, I cannot imagine greater opportunity to make fun of stuff with this book. So.
And it's always interesting to me that because in my own writings, how even if you're writing a completely fictional book, how history sometimes influences you. And not you personally, but I mean you as a writer, as a writer.
Minor in history, so
yeah, I always think that's really fascinating. And the history, and because Bohemia was featured in Sherlock Holmes, right? A Scandal in Bohemia. That's one of the most famous Sir Arthur Conan Doyle short stories. So I'm trying to think, I had a question and I went off on my soliloquy about Sherlock Holmes and I lost it. But explain for viewers now. I know because I read the book, but I want you to say the significance of the crystal daggers. Why the Order of the Crystal Daggers?
That's kind of a Cinderella influence there. I really like those Swarovski crystals.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? Okay. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if instead of a glass slipper, it was glass dagger? And I was like, but I don't know if that would work. So I was like, I need something a little bit harder. And I mean, if you're going to kill somebody, you better make sure that you kill them.
Right, exactly.
That's kind of how that came about. And it really helps that I do really like purple a lot. Like, if you look at my Starlight Chronicle series, I just released the prequel, and it has a very purplish theme surrounding my female protagonist in that one, which is Starry Night. So,
and what are some, say someone's like, okay, I really want to read. I read The Kingdom of Ash and Soot, and I really want to get more of C.S. Johnson's books. Where would you recommend they start? Because this is the second book of yours that I read. I read a prequel. Book. What say again?
Oh, you read Adis?
I did. I read Adis, which was it was a prequel to another series, and I started with that one because it's a novella. It's a little shorter, and I highly recommend it as well. I can't wait to keep reading The Order of the Crystal Daggers. But if you have a new fan, where would you suggest that they start?
Well, if they liked The Kingdom of Ash and Soot, go to the Divine Space Pirates trilogy. That's the one that I started writing during the 2016 election. So you have the fun what if apocalypse kind of scenario. You've got a stolen pirate ship in space circling around the Earth, true love, romance, family dysfunction. It's all there. So
Now, and where can people find your books? Because one of those things about indie authors that people complain about is they're so hard to find. So where can people find your novels?
Pretty much most anywhere. I have a lot of the series work that I have is in Kindle Unlimited, so you can always go to Amazon. But I know Google has some, the Google Play. I know iBooks and Barnes and Nobles and everything else that kind of follows that.
Basically, wherever books are sold.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Yeah, just not physically, you know.
Now, I want to segue a little bit because one thing that you and I had talked about on Twitter and when we were arranging this setup and whatnot is you're about to go to Comic-Con in Atlanta, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I am incredibly jealous. I have only been to one small Comic-Con out in the middle of nowhere, and they didn't hardly have anyone that I knew or recognized. So I'm excited for you, but I'm also very jealous. So
I would let you come.
Oh man, I would love to. If I wasn't all the way in Los Angeles, I would definitely hop on a ride, plane ride. But who's going to be there? Who are you excited to see?
Well, probably the one that caught my attention first was Cary Elwes. Am I saying his name right? Cary Elwes. The Princess Bride, guilty cult follower.
X-Files.
Yes, it's one of the few movies that is actually just as good as the book in different ways. Because there's not a whole lot of movies that are better than the books, but it's just as good as the book in a different way.
You know, he's good at, and this is my anime hat, but there's a Studio Ghibli film called The Cat Returns, where he voices the Baron, who is the main character. He's this anthropomorphic cat, and he voices the Baron. And I know this is so funny, but it's actually one of my favorite roles of his. So that's pretty cool that you're going to get to see him.
Oh, I'm a big anime fan. I'll have to check that out. So.
Oh yeah, I love Studio Ghibli. I haven't seen all of their films, but the ones I have seen, I just adore. They're fantastic. Let's see what. Who else is going to be there that you want to check out?
Probably. I want to go take my kids actually to see Sean Astin from Samwise Gamgee's role that they're pushing. But my kids are young and they really like that Special Agent Oso. That's actually part of the reason I wrote a spy one too. They really like watching it. And I was like, I should get a figurine and have them do the voice and see if they recognize it. And I've heard on all accounts he's a very, very nice man too. So I think the fact that I want to go just because my kids would be excited to see him makes me feel pretty good about just that.
Go ahead.
Oh, well, I was gonna say there are a couple other people too, but not people that I would like know if I saw them. So like Paige O'Hara will be there, and she's Belle's voice in the Disney princess thing, and Linda Larkin's there too. Same with Jasmine. And the other one that caught my attention was Nichelle Nichols. I think a lot of people know her from Star Trek. So
Nichelle Nichols, that name is really familiar. Who did she play?
Uhura. Uhura?
Oh, okay, yes. Okay, she's the original Uhura.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. Okay. I was like, I know that name. It's like, then you said she's Star Trek. Okay, that's right. Okay.
One of my guilty pleasures is actually Futurama, and they have her on no, I bought the set. No, I still watch it and laugh at all the same jokes. But they have an episode where the whole cast of Star Trek is in it, and so I know her from that first.
See, it's really funny because I grew up. This to this day, this boggles my fellow nerds' minds. But my mom is a Trekkie. Or Trek, she prefers Trek-er though. She's a Trek-er, and my dad is a Star Wars fan. So they were always in this competition on which one me and my sister would like more. And it's for me, it's always a mood swing. So like right now, I'm loving Star Trek more after The Last Jedi.
Oh,
so, yeah, exactly. I actually told someone the other day because I had two of my fellow nerds were getting into an argument. And I didn't really want to get involved. So when they asked me which was my favorite, I said, I like Firefly. So I just did not want to get involved in their debate. So
I'm probably one of the few people that doesn't like Firefly. So
yeah, Firefly is an acquired taste because it's similar. It's a cross genre because it's kind of a Western space opera. So I do understand. And also, there's only 12 episodes of the show, and the movie. It was just kind of like, oh, that's why that happened, because they were just trying to tie up all the loose ends. So
yeah, well, I know you mentioned before, like talking about Steve Ditko. Am I saying his name right? I'm a reader, so when I say things out loud, it's never how I hear them in my head, I promise. But he was they're both kind of like libertarian-esque type of a show or something like that. So, and I thought it was just too libertarian in some areas.
Well, it kind of surprises me because Joss Whedon is the creator of Firefly, and he is a raging liberal-holic. But Firefly, like you said, it has very libertarian themes to it. So kind of this anti-government stance and all this. It's very interesting. It always boggles my mind. And I guess that's good though, because Joss Whedon. I've never watched a movie of his I didn't like. Like he directed an adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. Everyone on my channel knows this, but for all you new people, I don't like Shakespeare. I think he's entirely overrated. I'm just going to go out and say it. But I like Joss Whedon's adaptation of Much Ado About Nothing. It was a lot of fun. I think that might have something to do with Greg Clark being in it. But anyway, back to Atlanta ComicCon. One thing I wanted to point out about Sean Astin, that a lot of people don't know this, he actually voiced Shazam in Justice League War and Justice League Throne of Atlantis, which are the animated Justice League films that are ironically better than the live action film.
Ironically,
yeah, ironically, yeah. They're but everyone should check out. When you said Sean Astin, I was like, he has comic book crossover as well. So that's cool. So who are you going to cosplay as?
Oh, myself.
As author C.S. Johnson.
Well, it's just, the nice thing about my name, like Johnson is my married name.
Right.
And the S actually comes from my maiden name. So I married into this name, and it's so perfect that it's a combination of C.S. Lewis and Samuel Johnson, who are
nice.
Like I could read them again and again and again, and that's who I would be. So when I tell people, when people see my name, a lot of the time I get the recognition of their names enough to where I can play it off like, oh yeah, you've totally heard of me. I'm totally famous, and a lot of people know me. You just got to trust me. Don't actually look it up. And so when I cosplay as myself, it's just saying, yep, this is what I do. So I am.
So let me ask you this then: if you were to cosplay as a character from one of your books, who would you cosplay as?
Oh, that'd be hard.
Just all of them.
Probably Starry Night. She's my original favorite female lead.
Oh, which book is she from?
The Starlight Chronicles.
That's right. Okay.
So
I've not read that one yet, but I plan to.
You might like that one, or you might hate that one because it's superhero fiction.
Oh, then I will. Then I probably will like it. Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to stand up here and I'm going to show you. So what I do is I got my graphic novel pants. Yep, on. So when I cosplay as myself, I have the actual graphic novel adaptation on my pants for the Starlight Chronicles. And I got my Kingdom shirt on. So, yep.
That's really cool.
Yeah, and I liked what you said. Thank you for noticing. My female characters are not PC in the sense like when people talk about strong characters, people forget that the strongest thing about anybody is your convictions.
Right.
So that's what I tell people. I said my characters may not be the physically most fit or the most attractive. In fact, I like playing heroes, frankly. Makes everybody, I think, growing up feel better about themselves.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and so it's just what you believe and how far you go for those beliefs. So
and that's something that I think is missing out of a lot of kind of modern movies. Is they're so focused on grandstanding and virtue signaling that the characters themselves get lost. So like whenever I watch, say, like a Fast and Furious movie, a lot of really cool female characters, but they don't do the whole, oh, you're weak because a woman, and she's like, no, I'm not, I'm a woman, hear me war. She doesn't. They don't do all that. They just do, and
Mhm.
I really think that, and so I can, so it doesn't, you know, the fact that all of the characters are parachuting cars out of planes and landing exactly where the GPS drop is doesn't really bother me, because even though it's completely defies physics, I still enjoy it because I like the characters.
Mhm.
And I feel like people have forgotten that that readers read books because they care about the characters. So, and I think as writers, one thing that that you do really well from the books that I've read is your books are very character driven. They're not built on, now obviously your values are presented in the stories, obviously, but your characters are very well developed, and that's something that I think is kind of missing from modern fiction. What do you think?
I would agree. You know, there are a lot of just there's a lot of shallow things, very shallow culture just from what I've seen. Like like with one of the nerd things that I actually didn't like that much was Ready Player One.
Oh, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay, so I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but like it's supposed to be this like war of imagination type thing, and it's like just pull the plug on the business and it's done. It's taken care of. So and I didn't really find out that much about the main character at all, like who he was or anything other than he's just this character that's kind of wrapped up into stuff. And so when my husband got mad at me for saying that. Ryan doesn't like it when I spoil movies for him. Usually when people go with me to movies, I pay because they know that the cost they'll suffer the cost.
Whenever my wife hates it because I'll commentate on the movie trailers before, and so like when the trailer ends, I'll like say something usually sarcastic, and like sometimes I'll get laughs, sometimes I'll get jeers, but it drives my wife insane. She's like, just stay quiet through the trailers, please.
Yeah. My most embarrassing moment in movie history is we went to see Green Lantern.
Oh, geez.
That's embarrassing in itself now, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
But they like the whole process to like make over his body and stuff and make it into the superhero form. And it was like everybody was really quiet, and and I said they did all that work, but they couldn't straighten his teeth. My mother was a dental hygienist, so she always says all the villains had bad teeth.
That's so great.
So when I go to movies, that's the first thing I check out. But anyway, everybody heard me pretty much.
Oh, wow.
And Ryan was like, "Shut
up." Mine is one time I went to, when I can't remember what movie I went to see, but the trailer for what's that one? Pitch Perfect. Can't remember if it was 2 or 3, one of the Pitch Perfect films.
Yeah,
And
after a while.
yeah, there was a scene with Fat Amy where this guy invites her to his room, and she says no, but then she winks at him, and he goes, "Wait, I'm confused. Are you saying yes or no?" And then she goes, "No," but then she winks again, and so then it comes up, you know, coming whenever, and so I yelled at the top of my lungs, "Classy!" And every female head in the movie theater, all the guys are trying not to laugh, and all their wives and girlfriends are looking at me and like they want to chuck their popcorn boxes at me, like, because I yelled it loud. Like it wasn't like I just went, "Oh, classy." I like yelled "classy," and it was so funny. But yeah. Yeah, that's why one of my embarrassing theater. Well, not it wasn't embarrassing to me, but the friends I was with, they were like, "Oh, we don't know this guy. We just sat next to him."
Your friends suffer when you go to the movies with them too.
Yeah, exactly. And they hate. A lot of my friends hate going to me when it's a book adaptation, because like I always go, well, the book didn't have this, the book didn't have that, the movie left out this crucial character or whatever. But,
yeah, that was one thing about Ready Player One. That was the reason I agreed to go see it, was because I didn't read the book. So it's, you know, after watching it, I'm like, I don't know if I should read it or not.
I didn't really get into it because his books, or the book, was more based on like card playing games. Like he had a lot of cool nerd stuff in it, a lot of neat stuff. But I wasn't really a trading card person. I've only collected 2 trading card games my entire life, and they were none of the popular ones. Like I wasn't into Pokemon, I wasn't into Dungeons and Dragons, and it was
Magic.
yeah, and the book was very Dungeons and Dragons influence, which is fine. That's fine, but it's just I wasn't into it, so I didn't get like a lot of the pop culture references in it.
I kind of want to ask him what he thinks about Gamergate now.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. and now they're saying all this stuff with comic books. There's Martina Mercoda, who I had on a couple of weeks ago. She's promoting this idea that there's going to be a comic book gate soon, with especially now that Sony has bought the rights to Vanity. Because I hope that's a sign that Sony's just going to give up on their Marvel stuff, and they're just going to let Disney have it, because Sony bought the development rights to Valiant Comics, which I'm not a Valiant fan. I don't know a lot of the only titles I know are like Ninja K and Bloodshot, I think, is one. So I'm not really. I know Vin Diesel is helping develop their adaptation of Bloodshot, but that's really the only ones that I'm familiar with. So.
Oh well, I couldn't tell you a press to save my life.
Yeah, but we'll just have to wait and see. And speaking of comic books, one of the some really sad happened today. That's why I'm wearing my Spider-Man shirt, my Spider-Verse shirt. But Steve Ditko, who co-created Spider-Man and with Stan Lee and Doctor Strange with Jack Kirby, he passed away this week, and I was very heartbroken about this because I was too young to remember when Bob Kane passed away. Bob Kane is the co-creator of Batman. Yes, I said it. I'm not taking it back. He's co-creator. I was too young to remember when Bob Kane died, but Steve Ditko passing away, that was kind of a big deal for me, because I actually have some original Spider-Man comic books that Steve Ditko drew and co-wrote with Stan Lee. And just his influence on comic books, he was the one who brought bright colors to Marvel. Before, Marvel was originally called Timely Comics, before they changed their name to Marvel Comics. And he was the one, him and Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. Oh, I hate myself. I forget the fourth guy. But these 3 guys, and as well as other people at Marvel, they brought color to comic books. Because even if you read some of the old Batman stuff, like their color palette isn't that expansive. But Marvel was really good about that. Marvel came out in the 60s when everything was colorful and everyone was on acid. So, you know, and in fact, there's rumors that Jack Kirby designed the Dark Dimension after some of his acid hallucinations, which would not surprise me, because it looks like it on the pages. But now Marvel has kind of changed, where the Dark Dimension looks more like a generic, like just space thing. But if you read the original Dark Dimensions, like it's all like these weird shapes and odd, bizarre colors. But Spider-Man has always been my second favorite superhero. Batman's been my first, and Spider-Man has been my second since I was 8 years old. And so I just wanted to take a moment today and talk about just how Spider-Man has influenced pop culture. And so I'm curious, as for you, like, I remember when we were talking, when I was telling you the topics I wanted to discuss, you said Spider-Man was one of the first comic book movies you saw. By any chance, do you remember which Spider-Man it was?
Oh, goodness. Tobey Maguire's, of course.
Of course. There you go.
Sam Raimi ones. I actually bought those for my kids to watch. My kids are still really young and everything, but if people look at my taste in movies, they'll probably be questionable about my book.
I'm very eclectic with movies, so
yeah. Well, so I saw the movie in 2001, I think, or 2000, and with Spider-Man, and it was about the time of 9/11, and I mean, like, I was 13 years old when 9/11 happened. So the idea of superheroes, I think, has kind of really shot up from this idea of, you know, just there are things that we can't you know, we can't always just, you know, we have to fight, and we can't sit around and be entertained by, you know.
Right.
But I really appreciated the writing for the first two movies. I don't talk about Spider-Man. I don't talk about Spider-Man.
Topher Grace's Venom. Really?
Yes. Yes, it's the well, I mean, I can, but I'm just like, it's, you mentioned acid earlier.
Well, I don't blame Sam Raimi. He wanted to make Vulture the bad guy in the third movie, and so he thought it was too soon to introduce Venom. The studio, Sony, made him introduce Venom. So I don't really blame him for that. It seemed like he was kind of forced to do a story he didn't want to do.
Oh, it's all in the studio for that one.
Oh yeah. and see, this is my thing with Marvel. It's kind of funny because DC and Marvel have the opposite problems. DC treats their creators real bad. So like the creators of Superman, they treated real bad, but they treat the writers really well. Marvel, they kind of have the opposite problem. They treat their writers really bad, but they treat their creators really good. And they gave, you know, when Stan Lee and Steve Ditko were still writing Spider-Man, they gave them a lot of freedom. And from that, we were able to get such colorful characters as Spider-Man, Dr. Octopus, the Shocker, Shocker is featured in Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, you can see their influence. I mean, Batman, every Batman movie, with the exception of Batman and Batman Returns, his costume changes. Spider-Man's has basically always been the same, because that just shows the big influence of. I mean, there's variations on, obviously, in Amazing Spider-Man and the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, they couldn't make his eyes move. That was something new to the MCU, but just that pace and of creativity. And they and I say this with no, I'm not blowing smoke. Like Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, as comic book writers, really influenced my writing. You know, because I was able to read those comic books early on at even before I became a writer. So I'm curious because like you published a graphic novel, what are some titles, I guess, that influenced kind of your superhero genre books, or superhero characters? If you don't, if I know there's so many writers, you lose track. But if there was, if you could pin down a couple of comic book influences,
okay,
where would you think that they would land?
Oh, I had I had a big manga collection.
Oh, yeah, I love manga.
I had well, the first time that I went through depression. Okay, and this is kind of a weird story. The first time I went through depression, I was seriously in 8th grade. It was 2002, because it was right after 9/11. And I started watching Adult Swim anime late into the night to try to go to sleep, and I really liked a lot of the, you know, and there's Toonami earlier too, so it was kind of, I grew up watching Sailor Moon. I watched Inuyasha a lot. I loved Case Closed. I loved The Mystery. I loved a bunch of stuff that they had on, you know, the Prince of Tennis. And a lot of, like the Sakura series I saw is getting a reboot or something this year with Clamp. And they have a lot of excellent series. I love the artwork. And when I started writing my own work, the big superhero kind of crossover is the Starlight Chronicles, and I started writing that in high school because of God. No, when I was depressed, I had a really hard time in school, and so but I had a really supportive church family. So people who say religion doesn't do you any good don't have a good church family.
Yeah.
And so I spent a lot of time with them, and we talked about different things, and I wanted to go into the mission field first. And I was always really interested in writing. I liked fantasy, and so the Starlight Chronicles is kind of like in epic fantasy, you have the hero's journey. I changed it into the believer's journey because when when people are opposed, and I see this a lot in today's world, it's very hard to suspend your belief, not to mention your disbelief sometimes. So one of my friends in high school was a very loud atheist. And he was sitting next to me in math class, and he had the God Delusion on his book, on his book pile on his desk, and I had the Case for Christ.
Nice.
And it was always kind of fun to watch, I mean, he's very smart, and he's very, very smart. He graduated like top of the class, and he's doing a lot of really cool stuff now. And just it was just so fun to imagine those angels and demons kind of warring it up around us. So I was like, you know what? Let's allegorize this.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, we were both very smart. We were both very intelligent. If you can't tell I'm intelligent, I'm sorry. It's a mom brain.
That's your problem.
Yeah.
That's what I always say. Oh, that's your problem.
Yeah. So we're both very smart. We're both very intelligent. We're both very compassionate people. And we believed very different things. And to kind of bridge the gap between our worlds, I wanted to write a story for him. And so, because I think this is something that, as a conservative, it's more easy to do. It's easier to slip yourself into the liberal shoes. Mm-hmm. And so I tried to picture what it would look like going from where he was to where I was. And so the believer's journey, you have this idea of accepting certain things about life and reality. Some people still have that problem. And then you have like committing to an ideal and testing it. And a lot of testing has to go through, I think, a lot of the time. And then ultimately working towards consecration and redemption. And then it's very similar to the hero's journey in that sense. So if people like my Starlight Chronicles, they usually like the rest of my work. So, because politics and religion are very controversial topics, and I'm okay with making fun of both of them.
Yeah, exactly. And one more thing before I let you go,
I let you go.
Huh?
Don't you mean before I let you go?
oh yeah, whatever. Sorry, I was listening to you. I was pondering what you were saying, because that's what I was going to touch on a little bit, is your personal story about your journey and being inspired to write these stories. And what, as an author, what do you want your readers to glean from your books? And what and there might be different ones for different books, but just if you were to say to someone, hey, I want you, this is something you can take away, what would it be?
It's probably a level of understanding. I mean, I write to understand what I know, what I think, and what I feel. And I, it's just so much fun discovering sometimes exactly what you think. I mean, you think things, but then like you put it into words and it's like magic.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
I had a professor once tell me, he asked me, he said, "You're very ambitious, aren't you?" And I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. I've never put it in those terms before. But yes, that's me in a nutshell. And so if I had to pin it down, it's just understanding a lot. Like, people live in their own little bubbles, in their own little worlds, and there's just so many more worlds around you that empathy and that sympathy for other people might not be instinctual. Mm-hmm. But also, just to have fun. I mean, like I tell people, if you don't like a certain part of something, you can ignore it. If you don't like religion in the Starlight Chronicles, you can ignore it. It's not really there. There are ideas that tie into it, but you don't have to go deeper than what you want. And the same for the politics. You can root for the good guys without, I don't know, changing your party.
Right. Yeah.
And so that would probably be it. Just understanding, adventure. I like playing with possibilities a lot. And so I would want them to. One thing I do like about my work is that I do try to make it very realistic, no matter what. And that means your characters have doubts, they mess up, they screw up, they're terrible people at times, and you just hope that your audience has enough trust in you that they can forgive it for now. I've actually had hate mail over Hamilton, who's from, that's my main character in the Starlight Chronicles. They're like, he's such a brat. His parents should have taken away his phone.
Yeah.
That's actually my fun Michael Knowles story for King.
Oh yeah. You said you had a funny Michael Knowles story.
Yeah. So I actually got this really long hate mail type of response about Slumbering, which is the first book in the Starlight Chronicles, and it made me feel terrible because it's like, that's my character. I'm not my character.
Right.
But I feel for my character. And this lady was like, this guy is just terrible. He's a brat. He should be punished. His parents just need to do a better job parenting. And I'm like, well, okay. It made me feel really terrible. And at this time, Michael Knowles had his So Reasons to Vote for Democrat book come out, and he posted a couple of the negative.
Oh, but I just want to say it's a very thorough book. Everyone should, yeah.
Well, hey, Ben Shapiro says it's thorough. That's good for me. Exactly. Oh, but so he posted a couple negative responses from it, and he posted about how he responded to it too, because this guy was like, "This is terrible," and then Michael said something like, but you can't find anything wrong, or you can't argue with the conclusions, can you? And I just laughed, and I messaged him over Facebook, and I was like, he'll probably never read this, but I really appreciated how he put that out there and showed that, and he messaged me back, and after I told him I was grateful, and I decided something. So yes, I actually am going to send him a copy when I get my order shipments of physical books, just as a thank you. So, I did give him a character in the book too, so he's Jarl. So
you'll have to, yeah, for sure, you'll have to let him know that. Yeah. So, all right. Did you want to add something?
I'm sure at some point it's just weird to tell people that you write books about people that they're based on.
Base this character off of you, axe murderer. Just kidding.
No, a lot of my villains have their roots in different people that I've hated. Bosses,
yeah, that's true.
Previous professors, you know who you are.
Yeah, in Cacophony, I had to be very careful because the antagonists are demons. So I was like, I have to be very careful, like how I word certain phrases and stuff, because I don't want someone to go, "Hey, did Jacob base this demon off me?" The answer is probably, if you have to ask, the answer is probably yes. I had a person say that once. If you have to ask, the answer is probably yes.
Yes.
But anyway, yeah. So where can people find you?
Oh, well, Facebook, Twitter. My website is csjohnson.me, which I guess is csjohnson.me. The csjohnson.com is actually some kind of shipping hardware tool factory. Not quite the same thing. I thought about trying to buy the domain name from them, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, ME is good.
Probably most of the people who read my books have some kind of desire to buy a weapon of some sort at some point. So this might some point. But well, thank you just very much for having me on. It's very nice to get to talk with you and all your fans that I'm gonna start stalking over Twitter probably.
Yeah, absolutely, go for it. Of course, you can find me right here on StudioJake. Just a reminder to subscribe and ring the little bell, like and share this video. Of course, you can find me on my blog, jacobairy.blog. You can find me on Twitter at realjacobairy. It's really interesting. I just had a Twitter debate with Jason Rantz. He's a radio talk show host, so you'll have to go back and read over that. You can find me on Instagram, real.jacob.airy. And as always, check out my blog, jacobairy.blog, where I've got more movie reviews. I've got graphic novel reviews. I've got C.S. Johnson's latest book reviewed, so definitely check that out. And from there, go to the link and purchase it while you're at it. Thank you, everyone, so much for watching. I appreciate it. We'll see you next time right here on Studio Jake.